college sports are basically slavery. Hola, bienvenido a todos. Welcome back to my channel. So today's chat is going to be kind of a lifestyle content video. And as you can tell by the title, it's going to be the things that I wish that I knew prior to becoming a Division I athlete. I thought this video was going to be pretty timely, considering that this should be back to school season for a lot of students. And I know that for me personally, my training season started around the first week of September, like right after Labor Day. So again, I hope that this video is coming out at a convenient and relevant time for those of you guys who are interested or are currently in collegiate athletics. And before we get into the subject, I just want to say that if you guys haven't been keeping up with my page, you have been missing out, okay? Because I have been posting tips and tidbits and just hopefully helpful videos surrounding my application cycle, including an MCAT score reveal video and a AAMC SJT/Casper video. So if you guys haven't seen those, please go check those out. If you're new to this channel, hey, and just go ahead and feel free to browse around my page and click on any videos that, you know, catch your attention. And I hope that you find a place here and hit that subscribe button so that you're always updated with the content that I post and you just keep up with me during my pre-med journey, okay? Now, as far as this video goes, I'm going to be breaking it down into multiple different sections. And as always, I'm going to have timestamps below so that way you can jump around to the content that's most relevant to you. Okay, let's get into it. So first things first, I'm gonna start off with the recruitment period. So this should be for people who are in like their junior or senior year of high school. And then this also can be helpful for anybody who has no idea how to even go about, you know, navigating collegiate athletics or are, you know, just perhaps relatively interested in possibly doing it in the future. So in terms of the recruitment process, the first thing that I want to say is you should know what type of institution you're currently at. Some schools are better prepared and better equipped to send students to collegiate programs than others, okay? Nothing on this earth is created equal and fair. So some schools, like in particular private schools, so for instance, the one that I know of in the state of Maryland is called Bullis. Some schools are more connected to, I guess, or they're more, I feel like the best way that I can say is connected to these collegiate programs. Like they have sponsorships or like they have a coaching staff that knows plenty of the coaching staff in college, and colleges frequently come to the campus. So they just have more resources. There we go. They have a lot more resources for the athletes at their schools in order to get them into these college level programs. Whereas other schools are just like your regular secondary high schools. You know, I didn't go to a school that was specialized. I went to a regular high school like many of the other people I know. So because you don't have as many resources and as many contacts to schools, my biggest suggestion to you is that you take initiative and look into schools yourself and get comfortable with the idea of reaching out to staff members on your own behalf, as well as learning how to market yourself appropriately as a student athlete. So I know that I used to see this often for ball sports. So like in particular football and basketball, I know that there are like these pages where you can do highlight reels and pretty much like promote yourself and like, here's me in the middle of a play so that recruiters can come and watch and see that. But for other sports, that's not really a thing. I did track and field. I keep saying I ran track and field, but I was also a jumper. So I did track and field, and like there was no highlight reel for me. Like at the end of the day, track meets are long as I don't know what, and my parents were not out there all day long trying to record me so that way I could have film to put up on a website. So when you kind of like lack that ability to market yourself through like an online platform, again, you have to get really comfortable with the idea of just reaching out to coaches yourself. You know, don't think that that's inappropriate. Don't think that that's weird. If a recruiter is like really in the middle and in the season of trying to get people to the program, there is no harm in you trying to reach out yourself and just kind of, you know, putting yourself in their path and being like, hey, well, if you're looking for somebody, here's me. With that being said, the second point is knowing your recruitment period for your respective sport. I know that for me, recruitment season typically happens like in the spring because that was peak season for track and field. That's when like all of the competitions are relevant, the spring and the summer in particular. So, and then knowing eligibility rules. So like you don't really want to be reaching out to recruiters and you're like a freshman, right? So that's why I said this segment is more so for juniors and seniors, but sometimes people don't know that. Sometimes people think you're so, you know, again, you're supposed to be reaching out to recruiters or worrying about recruiting all 4 years. No, you don't. That's more so when you're about to leave and exit high school. The third point, since I mentioned doing research into the school, when I say research, I really mean go and stalk them, okay? Curate a list of schools that you could potentially see yourself participating in, whether it's because you've heard about the program so many times, that program has like your favorite sports teams, you know somebody who went there, whatever the case may have you, compile a list of college programs that you could see yourself at and then stalk them. Like go on their website, look up who the coaches are, and more importantly, look at the current athletes. Look at the current, and then I would say maybe like the roster beforehand, so like the year before, to check out their graduating seniors. And you want to try to see where you are stats wise in terms of like stacking up against the competition. Yes, these people are going to be your teammates, but at the end of the day, what reason would a coach have to recruit you if you are no better than anybody that they already have on scholarship or on the team now? Like, you want to be able to make sure that wherever you go, there is an effective place for you to fit. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Even though I used this technique when I was already in college, I was just transferring. So this is relevant for anybody who's transferring as well. I just looked up my now alma mater, saw that they didn't have that many jumpers. I want to say that there were maybe one long jumper and one triple jumper on the roster. So I went on and just emailed the coach and was like, well, it looks like you are in need of somebody like me. Yeah, might as well take me. Okay, you wanna have, like I said, that ability to market yourself appropriately and know that you're gonna be useful for the team, because otherwise no recruiter is really gonna look your way, because it's kind of like, it's like supply and demand. You know, if there's too many of you on that roster, like if your specialty event or if your position is pretty much saturated at a program, I would say you're kind of wasting your time of trying to get views at that school, because again, they're not gonna need you. So really look into the current roster as well as the roster before. I would also say to look into the division itself. As I said, I was a Division I athlete, so you really want to make sure that your stats are kind of like competitive enough to be in the division itself. And then you want to make sure that it's competitive to the conference that you're going to be in. Once again, no recruiter is going to want to take on an athlete that come championship season, you're not going to get them any wins. So you want to make sure that you're just being smart about where it is that you're looking to get accepted to. Also, in terms of research, you want to look into the school itself. A lot of athletes, in my opinion, kind of fall into this trap of thinking that school is something that they have to do in order to play their sport, and it's the other way around. Academics comes first, okay? I can't really emphasize that enough. Y'all gotta eliminate that trash stereotype that athletes are all brawn and no brain. Please go to school somewhere that you can succeed academically. Do not go to school just to try to pass the class with a C average, because at the end of the day, God forbid you get hurt or something extreme happens and you're no longer going to be able to play your sport. You want to make sure that you're somewhere that has enough academic programs or majors that you're going to be happy doing a certain career for the rest of your life outside of athletics. all right? You don't want to be going to a school that's like completely above like your academic level or your academic rigor. You don't want to be going to school that lacks a program that you would really be interested in. So for instance, my alma mater, Morgan State, is really well known for its STEM department, you know, engineering and the sciences, architecture, all that good stuff. I also believe they're well known in business. So like, let's say you are really interested in those majors and that's something you could see yourself doing. Okay, you want to apply to schools like that. And I'm sorry if this stuff sounds like a no-brainer, but again, some people really don't know. So I'd rather say it and cover my bases. Also, in terms of recruiting season, the visitation period. When you go on visits, break away from the host that you have. Run, sprint, okay? No, not seriously. Don't actually run away and like sprint from them. But you wanna get away from the host, because more than likely the people that are taking you around the campus, I'm not sure if you're even still doing that at this moment because of COVID, but no matter what, whoever is introducing you to the athletic life at the school, those are most likely the coach's favorites. And we're gonna get into favoritism later on, but the reason why I'm saying this is you wanna get away from those people, because at the end of the day, they're gonna be showing you all the glitz and glam of the program, and they're gonna be speaking highly of the program because they themselves don't have an issue with it. Like, they think it's perfectly hunky-dory, but again, that's not necessarily a treatment or an attitude that the rest of the team might have. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all ever been at a job and like you got that one like golden apple employee that's just like always happy and hunky-dory and you know all the bosses love them, but then like you look at the rest of the staff and they're like basically slaves? So you want to make sure that you're talking to like a good representation of the team. Like, you want to talk to multiple people. You don't want to just be hearing all of the good and all of the greatness from these 2 or 3 favorites that the coach stuck you with, and then you don't want to be with the coach themselves, because at the end of the day, again, they're going to be trying to put their best foot forward. They're going to be trying to like advertise themselves as like the best of the best because they want you to come. All right. I used to joke with my friends all the time that like my coaches knew better than to make me a host for recruits, because I was going to tell it like it is.
I heard about you. I was waiting on you at the door.
I was going to let them know, like, yep, you're going to wake up at 6 in the morning. You're going to have practice all day long. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was going to let them know the nitty gritty. So that way, if they really chose to come there would be no disillusionment. There would be no like, wow, like this is not at all what y'all said. Nah, it's going to be exactly like what I said. You knew what you signed up for when you signed that letter of intent. And you ain't going to turn around and blame me and be like, wow, why didn't you tell me? Yes, I did. So, you know, but again, a lot of hosts aren't going to be like that. A lot of the people who are in charge of the recruits aren't going to be like that. So my advice to you with the whole recruitment process in terms of like visitations and getting to know the program, try to find the athletes on social media, okay? Use social media to your advantage. Try to DM some of the people who graduated recently if you can find them. Try to, you know, just ask about like, hey, what do you guys really think about the program? What are your likes and dislikes about the program? You know, and that's my advice in anything that you do. Anytime that you're applying somewhere that you've never been before, whether that's for a job, currently now, you know, like people like me applying to medical school, you always want to try to get a perspective from the current students and not the representatives that they have, you know, showing out for you on like the hosted tours, because at the end of the day, like, you just want the real honest truth, okay? Another thing that I would say in terms of recruitment is like take a couple days to just like go home and like really think about the pros and cons of attending specific institutions. You know what I mean? In terms of like notoriety or like the name of the school, sometimes that's not the most important factor to consider going somewhere. Like, I know, for instance, there's this stigma surrounding HBCUs where a lot of athletes will pass up the opportunity to go to an HBCU, to go to this like bigger name school. And it's like, well, had you actually looked into it, you know, a lot of these HBCUs are like just as good as like your Big Ten or like your other like SEC, whatever type of schools. You know, for instance, there are several athletes that went to the Olympics for track and field that came out of North Carolina A&T. So you just want to make sure that when you go home at the end of the day, you're taking your time to really look through all of your selections and know why or why not you wouldn't want to go there. And just take your time. Don't let anybody rush you. Don't let anybody pressure you. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of this segment. What to expect when you actually are a college athlete, okay? The good, the bad, and the ugly. The first thing that I'm gonna say is college sports are basically slavery. All right, I want y'all to let that sink in. College sports are basically slavery. Now, granted, while there is kind of a trade-off, a lot of student athletes do get financial support to play the sport. So, you know, in terms of like scholarships that will pay for their tuition and fees and their housing. But there's this false idea that every single student athlete that you see on campus is on scholarship, and that's simply not true. A majority of the athletes on any given team are probably walk-ons, especially for smaller sports or sports that are not as well funded, like track and field, because they simply don't have the money. So you got to understand that you're going to be committing a lot to a sport and potentially receiving very, very little in return. And even for those that are on scholarship, as I said, that time commitment is something else. That time commitment and expectation that you pretty much got to show up and perform, and the mental and emotional pressures that go into showing up and performing, it can really suck the fun and suck the joy out of what you do.
Not to mention the pressure of losing your scholarship if you don't perform well. Like, that's always looming over your head.
It can really feel like, let me back up. In my opinion, it feels like going to work with unfavorable conditions. You know, for the people who have never played a sport and, you know, are commonly saying like nasty, you know, kind of smart alecky things about student athletes, I challenge you guys to think about, would you guys work a work week of more than 40 hours if you're getting paid below minimum wage? Would you guys be willing to work at an establishment that doesn't let you capitalize off of your own name and image, despite the fact that they're making millions of dollars off of you? I mean, the NCAA, they did just kind of like make a rule that says that athletes could be compensated for their name and likeness, but the fact that it took this many years for that to happen, and, you know, many institutions are being funded by athletics, because let's be real, we ain't gonna sit here and pretend like institutions aren't big name sports schools, Roll Tide and, you know, the Florida Gators and things like that. So the fact that like student athletes were pretty much not getting a piece of any of that pie was ridiculous to me. So anywho, back to the job example, would you be willing to work at a job that says that you have to work outside in freezing weather without the proper gear, or in the blazing heat without water? You know, there's a lot of, in my opinion, like ethical work conditions that are not actually implemented in the arena of sports. For whatever reason, it seems like, well, y'all signed up for that life, so it is what it is, and there's kind of little regard for athlete mental and emotional and like physical health. And that's something that you can even see being battled on like the world stage, right? Like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka coming out to talk about kind of like that piss poor treatment or care about like athlete health outside of just being an able body to play a sport. So I really just want you guys to understand that when you sign up to do this collegiately, you're going to be dealing with a lot of those same issues, and you really may be questioning like, wow, like what did I really get myself into? All right, it's a lot of responsibility, and I just don't want anybody to, like I said, to get into this life, you know, get into no student athlete lifestyle and pretty much bite off more than they can chew. Now, the second point that I'll get into, it can be enjoyable if you make it enjoyable. You know what I'm saying? You really have to remember, or let me not say you really have to remember, you really have to focus on the fact that you're just trying to better yourself physically, like every day. Like I found that most of my joy came from trying to outdo myself and push my physical body to its limit and see how far I could go. You know, you have to have a personal fascination in like your physical ability. Like that's really the only way that I can phrase it. Because like I said, like there are definitely going to be days where you're like, man, like why am I here? Because there are going to be times where you're like, man, like you wake up for practice and you're like, yo, like why did I do this to myself? So I would say that honestly, like the peak of your enjoyment is probably going to come out of competing. Those dog days of practice, you're just going to have to keep telling yourself, like, I'm doing this to be the best version of myself. I'm doing this to see how far I can go. Like, you're really going to have to keep yourself on your toes. So that rolls me into point number 3, which is kind of the contrary end of, it is very possible for you to go to college and do worse than you did in high school. It is possible for you to regress in your performance. And I just feel like a lot of people don't talk about that enough. I feel like, you're always kind of being challenged and pushed to be better and better and better every day. But at the end of the day, realistically speaking, is it possible for you to just, be limitless in your talent or like limitless in like your accomplishments? Probably not. Everybody gets hurt. Everybody has to retire. And for some of us, people peak earlier than others. And I just think that that's a reality that you have to accept. Not that you expect that to happen, right? Like, you don't want to go into college, being a college athlete thinking that you're just going to wind up sucking. Of course, you want to try to like speak big and speak large energy onto yourself. I'm just saying that if that doesn't happen, or if you do end up injured, or you just end up not doing as well as you expected, don't beat yourself up about it, because it's very easy for you to get depressed as an athlete. So that pushes me to my final point of student athlete burnout. Taking care of your mental and emotional health is key. Utilize the school counseling center if you have one. Normalize talking to your friends who do not play sports. Because if you sometimes when you try to talk to your teammates, they can be a bit like toxic positivity mindset. Like, they can be trying to be like, oh no, like, you just got to get over that, or like, you got to suck it up. And sometimes, there are moments where you can't suck it up. There are moments where it really just hurts, and you have to let that hurt out. You got to let that pain out. You got to cry it out. You got to scream it out in your pillow. You got to do what you got to do to feel better. And I feel like not a lot of people tell you that it's okay to feel those kinds of negative emotions. Now, you don't want to wallow in them. Again, you don't want to stay in that kind of like depressive or down mindset, but you do at least want to acknowledge them. And then you also want to be honest about them. And if your mental state is okay for you to continue. I'm going to be honest, my last semester of college, I actually stopped participating in track and field because I could just I just couldn't handle some of the social pressures that I was dealing with on my team, which is going to be the next like section that I talk about, is like the social aspect that people may not tell you about in being a college athlete. But I know that for me, like it just became too much. I wasn't eating right, I wasn't sleeping right, I was losing weight, like I just did not look good. So I know that for me, it was best that I kind of stepped away. I did my best in the 3.5 years that I competed as a collegiate athlete. And at the end of the day, I was proud of myself for what I had accomplished, and that was good enough. So the final section that I want to talk about is some of the social positives and negatives that are associated with being a student athlete. And the first point being, I don't think enough people tell you that a lot of those people are not your friends. A lot of those people are just your teammates. And that's okay. Like, you have to learn how to have boundaries with people. Sometimes you're gonna meet people in your life that are gonna be like your ride or dies until the end of time, but it's not gonna be many of them. Some of those people that you meet on your team are just meant to be that, teammates and nothing more. I would caution against like divulging super personal information or super like emotional information with people on your team, just because again, like, you got to realize like you're coming into a space with a lot of different personalities, with a lot of different backgrounds, with a lot of different motivations, and sometimes sharing your own motivations can seem weak or like lesser than others. And if you can avoid that, I just recommend that you do. I would say that, like, again, maybe just try to vibe with like 1 or 2 people who you feel like you can connect to outside of sports. Like, if the only thing that y'all ever talk about is practice or like competitions, then that person is probably not your ride or die. Like, that person is probably not going to be like your close like ace boon coon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, that perhaps is not the person that you want to be super personal and connected to. And I'm saying this because point number 2 is that sports are messy.
Here we go.
You have to understand that you are in a competitive environment. as much as your coaches may try to push team and unity, at the end of the day, like, everybody is there because they want to be the best of the best. Everybody is there because they have their own level of cockiness about them. So you can often find clashing personalities. There's a lot of interpersonal relationships that go on in the athletic department, whether it's people dating on the same team or it's people dating in, you know, inter sports, like, you know, the cheerleaders dating this, you know, this basketball player, or, you know, the track and field athlete is dating this other player. Like, so you want to just be mindful of, like, again, like, those kinds of natural conflicts that can arise, and really just stay out the way. You know what I mean? Like, try not to gossip, try not to get in the middle of any of that, because it is enticing. I mean, it's happening in front of your face. You know what I'm saying? Like, for somebody to try to act like they're, oh, I'm not into drama, or I'm not into gossiping, you're lying. It's human nature. It's human nature to want to be messy. So all I'm saying is that it's definitely going to happen. And, you know, you're going to be seeing, as I said, a lot of different clashing personalities and relationships kind of unfolding in front of you. And, you know, my biggest advice with that is just mind your business. Mind your business. Try your best to mind your business. And if you're going to tell somebody that ain't in this, that is not in the athletic world. Tell your friend that goes to a different school and don't even know those people. The next point in terms of social relationships is getting comfortable with speaking to your coaches and athletic staff. I think that a lot of student athletes kind of fall into this idea that they are a force to be acted upon and not a force to be reckoned with. There is a lot of change that you can make into your program if you use your voice well. So I know that for me, academics was super important because I was a pre-med student, and it always bothered me how, like, it seemed that my coaches, or, you know, just athletic staff in general, seemed to kind of like caution me against taking academic risks. Like, for instance, you know, I joked about this with my coach, but when I first transferred, and I told them that I wanted to be a science major and have like a double minor, they were like, oh, I mean, are you going to be capable of handling all that? And while I understood where they were trying to come from, because again, sports is a huge time commitment, at the end of the day, like, I had an idea and a vision of where I wanted to be academically in my future, right? Like, I couldn't become a doctor taking my easy way out. Like, I needed to pretty much fill up my plate and go hard, because medical school is competitive. So I do feel like that's where that, like, dumb jock stereotype comes from, because it seems like, you know, a lot of the time risk isn't really taken in terms of academics, or challenge isn't really welcomed in terms of academics when we are talking the sports world or the sports arena. So when it comes to, like, making those types of changes and, you know, pushing for better academic excellence, I know I started a tutoring program at my school. I'm just saying, like, you never know what you can accomplish until you try. So if you find that there's a subject that's important to you, that you feel like your department could be doing better, use your resources. Like, go to the staff that's in charge of that sector and talk to them about it. Set up meetings, have one-on-ones. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't hurt to open your mouth. And I feel like I accidentally glossed over this, back to kind of like the time commitment that I'm talking about. I'm just gonna briefly lay out what my schedule was to y'all. I woke up at 6 a.m. for practice. Then, depending on the type of practice, I would have 7 a.m. lift, and then I would have lab at 8 a.m. And then I would come back to practice at 3:15 p.m. And then I would have to go to study hall at 9 p.m. And in between any of those, like, blocks of times that I didn't mention, I would be in class. So I was trying to balance that type of schedule with having a social life, with going to competitions on the weekends and missing several days of classwork. So it was definitely like a hard balance and a hard juggle, which is why I was saying, like, my mental and emotional health kind of took a hit towards the end, and to just be mindful of, you know, not biting off more than you can chew, and the type of commitment that you're getting yourself into. But in terms of, like, a heavy schedule in regards to the social and emotional aspect of collegiate sports that I'm talking about right now, you just want to be mindful of keeping a healthy social life outside of sports and outside of athletics. Don't drop your hobbies. You know, please, like, if you enjoy reading, continue to read when you can. Do yoga, meditate, like, gain a peace of mind and a sense of self outside of your sport. Do not buckle yourself down to just the identity of a student athlete or an athlete that does this sport, because again, it's really toxic and it can lead you to burnout. I don't really have any other particular advice in regards to sports. I mean, I hope I wasn't too negative, because at the end of the day, I don't regret my experience. I do feel like I learned a lot about myself, and like I have a lot of worthwhile lessons that I have taken into my now, career life, in terms of like my government work, and then in terms of like my medical school applications and aspirations. So I have a lot of, long lessons, lifetime lessons that I keep close to my heart and near and dear to me. I have made some really good friends. I have, gained a certain appreciation and passion for fitness and health because I was an athlete. So I took away a lot of good things from my time in undergrad as a student athlete. I just wanted to put out this video to talk about some of the serious, or some of kind of like the ugly nitty gritty things that people maybe don't entirely consider when signing up. This is not an exhaustive list, however, so if you guys want like a whole segment on this, like, individual videos discussing whichever like components I talked about in this video, please let me know. Other than that, that's kind of like the end of this content. And I know that I was receiving a couple of comments on my other videos about making like a dedicated chat on like the cards section of the MCAT. So I might do that in the upcoming future. I also have just now finished all of my secondary essays, and I know that I talked about kind of like talking about my experience with completing essays and how I went about that. And then I should be receiving my CASPER score soon. And then hopefully after these videos go out, I'll be having some good news in regards to interview invites, and I can talk to you guys about that soon. So all in all, that's pretty much it. That's the end of this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and of course, if you're new here, subscribe. All right, have a good day. Bye now.